JDR Hawkins is an Amazon USA Today and Wall Street Journal best-selling, award-winning author. She is one of a few female Civil War authors uniquely describing the front lines from a Confederate perspective. Her Renegade series includes The Beautiful Glittering Lie, winner of the 2013 John Hicks Cookie Fiction Award and the 2012 Bragg Medallion. The sequel, A Beckoning Hellfire, is an Amazon bestseller and winner of the 2022 Bragg Medallion. Rebel Among Us, the third book in the series, is the recipient of the 2017 John Exton Cook Fiction Award and winner of the 2022 Bragg Medallion. Double-Edged Sword, the fourth series in the book, is a recipient of the 2023 John Exton Cook Fiction Award. These books tell the story of a family from North Alabama who experience immeasurable pain when their lives dramatically change from the war. Hawkins has published a nonfiction book about the war between the states titled Horses in Grey, Famous Confederate War Horses. She has also published a short story titled A Beshamed Cali Christmas to go with the Renegade series, as well as another short story for the series titled Fool's Gold Folly. Orkin is a member of the United Daughter of the Confederacy, the Historical Novel Society, the International Women's Writing Guild, Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers, and Pikes Peak Writers. She's also an artist and a singer-songwriter. And in today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy and excitement to have on the show today, Julie Hawkins. How are you doing today, Julie?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your program.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you. And I must say, you've got such an amazing and beautiful bio. Quite exciting we are here to sit down and talk about your body of amazing award winning titles. Thank you very much for
Thank
joining,
you.
really. Yeah. So, Julie, I need to first say that I am very impressed by the description of your book, A Beautiful Glittering Lie, a novel of the Civil War, which is the
hmm
fourth book in the Renegade series. And I mean, it's won quite an amazing, beautiful, heartwarming awards that I've mentioned so far. But then I wanted to ask you, I would like us to start today's interview by you telling us what inspired you to write this book. How does the story come to be? When do you realize you wanted to be a writer? If you can run us through the foundation towards the making of a beautiful glittering lie. And I must say that's even an amazing title for a book. Please
Thank you.
tell us what inspired this.
Well, the title is based on a quote that's in the book before the third chapter. It's a comes from a Confederate soldier, and he was describing the battle scenes and why he enlisted. And he came to find out it was all a glittering lie. Was his quote. So I like that. So I kind of did a
Mm.
little twist on it. But the book came about in a strange way because originally I wrote A Beckoning Hellfire first.
Oh,
And then I wrote A Rebel Among Us, and then Double Edged Sword. And then I went back and wrote the prequel, and that is A
wow.
Beautiful Glittering Lie. And A Beautiful Glittering Lie is based on one particular soldier's journal who was with the 4th Alabama Infantry Regiment. So I took a lot of stuff from his journal and interpreted it into my story. Um, as far as the inspiration for the whole series goes, I actually won a trip to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and I had never seen a Civil War battlefield in my life. I grew up in the Midwest. I lived in Colorado most of my life, so I'd never seen a huge battlefield, let alone the biggest one of them all, basically. And
Mm.
so when I went to Gettysburg, I was just so impressed, and I thought, I've never read a book about the Confederate perspective, and I'd really like to explore that more.
Wow.
So that's kind of what I did. I took that approach, and it's not about an officer, it's not about slave owners. Only about 4% of all the Southerners owned slaves, and the rich ones didn't go fight because they were exempt.
Mm.
So yeah, it's about a typical farm kid and why he would enlist in the first place. And then the
Wow.
series just kept growing and expanding. And now I'm ready to start on the fifth and final installment of the series, and that'll wrap up his story.
I must say that's such an amazing ride you've got in there. I love the way the title come to be. I love the short story you just told us about the making of the story itself in the book in particular. And I think that's such a beautiful one, really. It sounds to me to be quite amazing and quite awesome. And if you have a copy of A Beautiful Glittering Life, yeah, I'd like you to show
Oh,
to the camera just so it's what it looks
yeah.
like. And that's an amazing cover as well. Look at
There's
that.
a collection.
Oh wow, that's a beautiful one. Absolutely. And you know, Julie, after writing A Beautiful Glittering Lie, you didn't stop there. You continued the Renegade series with A Beckoning Hellfire, A Rebel Among Us, and Double-Edged Sword. Actually, I'm
Mhm.
really impressed with this title. It's quite interesting and quite compelling and captivating. But then each book diving deeper into David Summers' journey through the Civil War. Now, I wanted to
Mhm.
ask you, what inspired you to continue his story across multiple books, not just one, not just two, across multiple books? And also, how did your vision for the series evolve as you wrote each one from one to another? I like your take on that.
Well, I didn't really plan on writing a series. Originally, I wrote one book, and it just got longer and longer, so I made it into two books, and then the third book and the fourth, and I just kept expanding, and the characters just had more of a story to tell. And a
Mm,
lot of writers will tell you when we're writing our characters take on a persona of themselves,
absolutely.
all themselves, and they will come up with stuff that they put in your head,
Yeah.
and they want their story told. So that's kind of what happened with me. The whole book series, the Renegade series, is really a family saga. So it revolves around a family from North Alabama, but then David Summers meets a family up north, so it's about their story as well.
Mm,
And uh, it starts at the very beginning of the war with the inauguration of President Jefferson Davis, the first and only Confederate president. And it goes right now. It goes up through Reconstruction, and the fifth book will be westward expansion and how they're gonna go west. Young man was what they told everybody to do after the war.
wow, I must say that's such an amazing one, really. Because I love the transitioning. I love the fact that they keep moving. And I love your answer to that as well. Like the characters just feel like, oh, we need you to tell us more. Sometimes when I speak with other writers, they were like, they wanted to go this way. But the character said, oh, sorry, please, let's go this way. So on and on, they keep having much and much coming in. And like you mentioned, as you keep writing one, it keep getting longer and bigger, expanding on itself, evolving from one part to another, and
Yeah.
growing, spreading its wing. Say, Julie, I'm not yet done. Please continue. And even when you thought, oh, really? Said, yeah, please continue. That's amazing, really. That's a beautiful one. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. And also, Julie, you also wrote
Absolutely.
Horses in Grey, which focuses on
Mhm.
Confederate war horses. Now, what made you want to write about them? And how does that book connect with your Renegade series, if in any way? I'm just curious.
Well, the Renegade series is named after one of the main characters in the series, and his name is Renegade, and he's David Summers' horse. And the Confederate cavalrymen, when they enlisted, they brought their own horses. And at the time, a lot of those um, famous racehorses and the stuff like that, they all originated in the South, basically.
Yeah,
And so Southern soldiers were very familiar with riding and, being on horseback, whereas a lot of the Northern soldiers were around plow horses and stuff. They didn't
yeah,
ride. And so for the first half of the war, they had a lot of catching up to do.
yeah,
But the Southern soldiers took their own horses. The Northern soldiers were provided horses. So
mm,
the Southerners, Renegade for David, that's his pet. He loves his horse. It's a
yeah,
3-year-old stallion, and he's just infatuated with this horse. And so that's what the Renegade series is about. And then Horses in Gray is a nonfiction book,
mm,
and I just got inspired to write about it because I'd been doing all this research about the horses anyway.
wow,
I heard a gentleman give a speech about those horses, and it was
Mm,
so inspiring to me that I wanted to do some more research and find out a little more about them. Come
mm,
to find out, it's fascinating what those animals went through. They just so much tremendous suffering and devotion and loyalty is just
mm,
amazing. And I thought that's something that's lost to history and really needs to be told, because a lot of people don't realize what it
yeah,
was even like to be around horses like that, and just to really be so dependent on them, you
yeah.
know, during the war scenes. And then, they did everything. The horses just did everything. And
Mm,
yeah, so I just wanted to tell their story. Especially I focused on the more popular ones like General Lee's horse Traveler, and Stonewall Jackson's horse Little Sorrel.
mm.
And but I also talked about Nathan Bedford Forrest. He had several horses, and yeah, so it's
Wow,
really a
that's a great one.
fascinating book.
That's a great one. And if you have a copy of Horses in Grey, I would like you to show it to the camera just so we
Oh,
see what the cover looks like.
yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that. That's an amazing cover. It's beautiful.
That artist, his name is Dan Nance. He's a
Mm,
famous artist who
wow.
does a lot of military art.
Oh,
So, yeah.
that's beautiful to know. Thank you. That's amazing. And Julie, I wanted to ask you,
Uh,
how do you balance historical accuracy with emotional storytelling, especially when dealing with sensitive and controversial themes? And also, what does your research process look like in writing this book? And have you ever come across something unexpected that ended up shaping the story? I think I've got two questions in there already.
well, trying to get the emotional part is important to me, because
Mm.
that's what a good work of fiction does, really. For researching these books, I spent typically about 6 months researching each one and 6 months writing each one.
Wow.
And there's a lot of research involved, of course. I had to get it right, because if I didn't, oh, I'd sure hear about it from somebody. Because a
Yeah.
lot of these guys, they just eat, drink, and breathe it. But
Yeah.
anyway,
I know.
so I had to be really, really on top of my game as far as authenticity and accuracy goes.
Mm.
And so I did a lot of research for them, and I went through a lot of old books, and
Mm.
just I found a lot of flaws too, where the dates didn't coincide and things like that.
Mm.
So I had to kind of just pick and choose, sort of, and kind of work around it and guess as to what might have really happened.
Mm.
But as far as the rest goes, the emotional impact, once you start reading about these guys and their journals, it's hard not to get emotional, because they
Absolutely.
just did so much suffering. and
Yeah.
and just to imagine, the Southern soldiers, a lot of them, a whole town or a whole campus, like
Mm.
Ole Miss, all the guys went, and only I think like four of them came back after the
Wow.
war. So
Wow.
that's how they enlisted in the South. A whole big group of them would go and
Mm.
be in the same company, and just it could have. A lot of times it ended up tragically.
Oh,
So
wow. That is such a story you've got in there. That is a lot you've unraveled in there. Quite amazing and quite great. Thank you for sharing. Now, one of the things that surprised me most as far as writing is concerned is to sit back and listen to readers' feedback. And you may want to agree with me that one of the things that makes literature to be quite complex in its entirety is the fact that it can be interpreted in different people in different ways. And sometimes the reader might get the message intended by the author. Sometimes they might be close to getting the message. Sometimes they might be far from getting the message. And most of the time, they might just hilariously misunderstand the book and interpret it upside down. And as interestingly fun as this
mhm.
I would like to ask you, how do you feel when readers interpret your work differently than you intended? How does that make you feel as a storyteller?
Well, for the most part, I haven't really encountered that
Most
much.
of that.
It's pretty cut and dry. I mean, it's historical, so
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to argue it. But I have had a lot of people come up to me and say, wow, I never knew that happened, or I didn't know that the Southern guys went through that, and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people tell me that,
Mm.
which is great because I'm
Yeah.
getting my point across, is to tell
Absolutely.
their side of the story instead of, all being from the northern side. And a famous general, Claiborne, who was a
Yeah.
Confederate general,
Mm.
said something to the effect that the winner translates history, and that's the history that we get. And that's essentially what's happened with the Civil War, because
Wow.
we hear the northern side, and the southern guys were the bad guys, and they all wanted slavery and all this. Well, that's the furthest thing from the
Mm.
truth in actuality, but that's what I was taught in school, and
Mm.
a lot of people didn't know. So that's
Wow.
kind of what I wanted to do, was tell that aspect of the Civil War. There are two sides to every story, and so that's why I approached it from a Southern perspective.
Wow. That's a great answer to that, really. Quite beautiful and quite awesome. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Yeah, I love your take on that. Now, apart from the book we've mentioned so far, apart from the Renegade series and apart from the ones we've mentioned so far, do you have any other works you've authored or maybe say currently you're working on?
Well, I'm going to start working on the fifth book, as I
Wow.
mentioned. There are a couple of side stories that I wrote to go along with
Mm.
the series. And the one is Big Charm Cali Christmas. And it's just a cute little Christmas story about one of the minor characters. And she's 16 in 1862. And the
Oh,
war is just right at her doorstep. And it's how
wow.
she deals with it all. And she's an only child. She's pretty spoiled. She's always gotten her way. But here and now, she's finding herself close to poverty. And it's kind of interesting how she deals with it all. And
Wow.
then I just finished another side story called Fool's Gold Folly, and that takes place in 1869. It follows after Double Edged Sword, so it's kind of an in between story to go with the series. And it's about a minor character as well, Patrick Mulligan. He's an Irish immigrant. He is a friend of David Summers, and he meets him when he goes up north because
Mm.
Patrick lives in Pennsylvania. And then after the war ends, he gets gold lust, so he decides he's going to go to Colorado Territory and look for gold. So
Mm.
that's what that story is about. And on the way, and once he gets to Breckenridge, he encounters a crusty old miner who's fascinating and mysterious
Wow.
and all this danger lurking around. And so it's just kind of a fun little adventure story.
Wow.
But it'll lead into the fifth book as well.
Mm.
So when I start up the fifth book, it's going to take up right where I left off with Fool's Gold Folly, essentially.
Wow. I must say you've got an interesting storyline in there, and it's quite beautiful. You mentioned his only child, pretty spoiled, now transitioning, life is changing for this character, and you're trying to see how manipulate it and overcome all of these challenges. I think that's an interesting storyline, really. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
curious as to how that develops and what becomes the end of it. It really spikes my interest. Quite
good.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
An amazing one. Thank you for sharing. I mean,
absolutely.
fo- following your lovely title so far, you've authored this, you've authored that quite beautifully. Now, I wanted to ask you, I wanted to get your advice, your take for those people who are currently out there who are perhaps stuck, who are, facing one or two blockages, that's a called writer's block or something. If, all
Mm-hmm.
those people who wanted to be an author, and it's more like a struggle. It's more like very hard to do. We all know that writing is quite hard, yeah.
Yeah.
But then, what would you advise people who are looking forward to publishing a book, but are still stuck somewhere in the middle? What advice would you give aspiring writers in this category?
Never give up. Just keep at it. Stick with your dream. I've been working on this practically all my life. I've been a writer. I started with poetry, songs, and graduated up from there, and picture books, and all the way up to novels, and
Uh,
now I'm a award-winning novelist. but it's taken me years to accomplish it
Mm,
and refine my craft. And it's a lot of work. I mean, you go to conferences, you meet
yeah,
people, you
yeah,
take classes,
yeah,
all that kind of stuff, and learn the trade. And then, come up with a great story. That's
yeah,
part of it.
yeah.
But mostly believe in yourself.
Mm,
Don't give up. That's the
mm,
key. Because if you
mm,
give up, you don't succeed. And
mm,
and the only way to succeed is just to persevere
yeah.
and believe in yourself. That's basically my
Mm.
advice.
Oh wow, that's an amazing advice you've got in there. And I'm hoping that viewers, even including myself, would love to utilize it. That's such a deep one. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And just in case we have some viewers who are currently watching this interview, I would love to get a copy of any all of your books or any in the Renegade series and the ones you've mentioned so far. A beautiful, glittering light, a rebel among us, a beckoning hellfire, double-edged sword and the rest. On what platform are they available on for purchase?
Okay, well, they're all on Amazon, in paperback. A couple of them are in hardcover.
Mm,
And that's just because some of them have been previously published by other publishers, but right now it's Amazon, and I'm converting them over so that I'm the publisher now.
mm,
Fool's Gold Folly and The Charm Cali Christmas are both available in Audible,
mm.
and I'm working on getting the other 4 books on audio as well. So I'm in the process right now of re-editing all 4 books in the series, and once that's completed, we'll get it on audio.
That's
So,
a great
but it's all on Amazon. Everything's on Amazon. And you can go to my website too and find them.
That's an amazing one, really. Quite great. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Julie Hawkins' books directly on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, on our website, and also on other platforms. I also left a link to our social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Julie, for accepting the invitation to sit with me and have this conversation around your amazing body of literature works. Beautiful novels you've written, amazing genre they are, lovely conversation around the characterization, around the making and the storytelling, the making of the books entirely. This is really impressive. I've learned a lot, and it's so lovely to have spoken with you, to having conversation around your books. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure as well.